What's up, people? Welcome back to Haunted Smoke and Mirrors. We have a guest today,
Kayla.
Hi. But if you're new to the podcast, I'm Em,
I'm Riker.
and we normally do a podcast where we kind of like have a prompt that we go into. And this week, the prompt is what?
You need a therapist, not a psychic.
So, because of that, we brought on Kayla. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So as I said, my name is Kayla. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Chicago, or in the state of Illinois, in the city of Chicago. And I have my master's and PhD degree in counseling. PhD degree in counseling.
Yeah, so I thought it would be a fun time to do a podcast with Kayla because
We don't have PhDs in counseling.
yeah, and she's in town for the week
Yeah, she's visiting us.
on spring break.
We're doing some fuck around and find out witchcraft together, but
Yeah,
she's part of our community. Most of you guys probably already know who she is from videos, community, hangouts, Discord, all of that stuff. But
yeah. We originally met Kayla in Chicago when we were going to meet with Erica when we were going to be on Chicago Med. So Kayla went with us to go be on set for a day at Chicago Med, which was super fun.
same.
Kayla didn't want to be an extra, but she did get to see all of the sets and all of the behind the scenes, and it was really cool.
Yeah, we took her to Ashmore Estates and like ghost hunt with
Yeah,
Erica.
and that was literally the first time we met you.
Yeah, we like showed up.
Like,
We were like,
go.
"What's up?
Yeah.
Want to go on TV with us? And do you want to go on a ghost hunt?"
Yes. We're like, hey, you don't really know who we are. We've never met in person. Do you want to like just randomly show up somewhere in Chicago and hang out with people that you've never met in person before? Cool. Awesome.
I'm a little easy. But you already kind of explained what we do. I don't know. I feel rusty with doing podcasts because we've only done like one back really.
Yeah. We took a good break.
Took a good 7 months off. Wait, but we wanted to talk about this for a while because since as psychic mediums, people come to us a lot for their problems and want us to give them readings about every little thing. And as someone who has gone through extensive therapy myself, I'm like, I'm not qualified to talk about your emotions or help you like deal with mental health issues or grieving, like if you're grieving like a loved one. So,
Yeah, because I've had a lot of people in readings say things to me like, you are helping me more than my therapist is, or like, I, and I'm like, this makes me uncomfortable. But there's also like, I don't know, like a lot of debunkers or like people that are against what we do that come in and are like, you are just like preying upon people's weaknesses, like when they're in a vulnerable state. And that's not okay because you're like taking money from them and it's like a huge issue because they're in a vulnerable space. So they're just going to give you whatever it is to like get themselves out of that.
mm-hmm.
But we're not doing that. We do not claim that we're doing that. It's very much a like, we're not replacements for you going to therapy. We might be able to give you like things to talk about with your therapist, but that's a bit different. You know?
Yeah. But Kayla you have the unique position because you're in the like spiritual like community and stuff like that, but you're also like licensed. So we thought it would be fun to have her talk about her opinions about that as a professional because we are not.
We can't talk quick therapy for it.
I can only talk about my experience, my personal experiences in therapy. So
Yeah, so what are your thoughts about it?
I do think it's pretty complex, and I think that um spirituality and mental health do walk a very fine line with each other.
Yeah.
And it's important, one, to be aware of that, and then to also be able to pick apart the things that you need to maybe necessarily work on or that are being highlighted by anyone getting a reading, and then break it down. Like,
Yeah.
take
Right.
some time with it.
Yeah, because one of the biggest things in like spirituality is people talk about like shadow work, which if you don't know what shadow work is, it's your shadow is supposed to be the things that you keep hidden from yourself. So a lot of times that's like trauma, dissociation, those sort of things. So going through shadow work is viewing your trauma, viewing your shadow from a different point of view. So a lot of people go into spirituality and immediately are faced with this sort of thing. So that can be a little bit like towing the line of like, where can you do this by yourself? Where do you need help? Like that sort of thing. And where you get those answers from.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always view, for me, like shadow work and spirituality is a self-help reflection tool
Mm.
that then I take to a therapist to actually work through like the serious like trauma issues. Like,
Yeah.
if it's something like simple that like also talk about it with my therapist, but it's not as like whatever. But if it's like, oh, here's childhood trauma, my experience just trying to work on it yourself, it doesn't, you're not actually fully solving the issues or like learning how to deal with it in a healthy like coping mechanism way of like and understanding it. You might know what it is now, but I don't think that you can fully develop the tool sets that you need to heal that trauma until you go to therapy. But I'm also someone who is a big like everybody needs to see a therapist no matter what. So many issues can be solved in everyone if they just go to fucking therapy.
Right.
But I've also been in therapy like very consistently for the last like 5, 6 years. So
But I get that because when I first started in the spiritual sphere, I got a few readings and it was very easy to like get caught up in the excitement of it all, whether that was like spirit guides or things being validated by a reading. But it only took me to like my third one where I was like, okay, that's a lot of information that is very relevant to what I am dealing with on a day-to-day basis, which means that like those are things that I need to not just be aware of, but work through or accept it or something. And taking
Right.
that to a therapist is extremely beneficial because you can't see all sides. It's like really challenging to be in it and also figure out how to get out of it without some help sometimes.
Yeah, because when I give readings to people, like I said, I've literally had people be like, I think you're better than my therapist sometimes. And I'm like, I don't know that it's necessarily that, because I don't think I can give you the tools to deal with this. But the reason why they're relating it to that is because I'm very validating for them. Because I'm like, this is what your spirit guides are telling me that you're dealing with. So me telling them that and then being like, "Oh my god, you're right," is just bringing light to certain things and having an outside person explain feelings to them. But I don't know how to deal with those emotions. Yeah. I can't tell you what to do about them. I just know that that's what they're telling me you're dealing with. So,
I don't know. I feel like it's also like weird because like when you're going to like a psychic medium, they don't know anything about you.
right.
So having someone just like look at you and be like, "Oh, you're dealing with these traumas." You're like, "Oh, okay, I get it." Whereas if you go into a therapist and you're like, you have to tell them these are my traumas, and then
It's easier.
it's and then they tell you how to deal with it. I feel like a lot of people also just want validation versus actually fixing and like addressing the issues, which I know that's kind of what you're saying.
Exactly.
And I think that that is like,
'Cause I didn't pick that up until Kayla started talking about it. I'm like, "Oh, that's why they're telling me that because they feel validated to have those
yeah,
emotions."
because like for me, like when I started like doing tarot like years ago, I would like pull cards for myself regularly, and I was like, oh yeah, like the cards are like validating my feelings.
Yes.
But if you are just doing that, it's just like, yep, those issues are there. But what are you gonna have to do about it? Like,
It's emotions.
yeah, you have emotions, you have trauma, these things are real.
Yeah,
But what are you gonna do about it? And
for
like
sure.
tarot or like a psychic medium or any divination tool or like psychic medium reader,
Spirituality.
yeah, is not going. It's not a end all be all. It's the same as like I don't know. I view it the same as like going to like the doctor. There are some things where oh like if I sprain my foot, I don't always go to the doctor because I know how to treat a sprain. You rest, you ice, you elevate, like you compress, like you do very specific things. I don't always go to the doctor for a sprain. But if I'm like bleeding profusely or like I wake up and I can't walk, I'm not going to be like, I'm going to rub amethyst and put all of the crystals and do all of these things and I will be better. I'm going to just pray the illness away. I don't like, I think that they go hand in hand with each other, but
It's called spiritual bypassing in the therapist community, where you like take spirituality in place of emotional and psychological needs. And so you just only focus on the spiritual things because you get some kind of answer to whatever you might be feeling. And it's like, okay, I'm not losing it, or I'm not, not experiencing it. But again, it's still important to circle back around because, like you're saying, it's still going to be there tomorrow. Just because you know that someone is there helping you with it, or that it's just there, doesn't make the problem go away. And sometimes it might even make it a little bit more challenging if a person like continues to get more and more readings, even on that same topic, because you're not moving the needle any further. It's
Yeah.
more of just like cycling over and over again in the same feeling and in the same situation.
a few years ago, this was before I like started doing anything with UN, but I was like streaming readings on Twitch. And every single week, the same person would come and want a reading on the exact same topic over and over and over again. And they were like, "Oh, like how is it different this week?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, nothing is different because all you're doing is like logging onto Twitch every like Thursday night and giving me like $2 to pull a few tarot cards and tell you that you still have the same traumas."
Yeah.
And eventually got to the point where I was like, just go talk to a fucking therapist or talk to someone about it. Like,
Yeah.
I am
Like,
not that person.
change what's happening to you.
Yeah. And even like, I don't know. I think people have issues. I think they replace therapy or mental like health like professionals with spirituality because of the stigma behind therapy.
Yeah.
So many people are like, "Oh, if I go to therapy, that means that I'm crazy." But it's like, no, that's not it.
I
Like,
mean, some people might also view going to a psychic as maybe a Christian.
no, you're 100% correct. I am one of the people where if you're like, "Oh, I'm like struggling with like really bad thoughts and I'm not okay. Give me a reading." I'm like, I don't think a reading is gonna help you here, love. Like,
Right. Yeah, but it's also like, I don't know, it's easier to go to a psychic because the psychic is going to tell you, this is what I see. This is what's going on. But like you said, when you go to therapy, you have to tell the therapist.
Yes.
So now you have to tell someone with the fear of being judged. Whereas when you're with a psychic, the psychic feels like they're not judging you because they're the ones telling you the information. But wouldn't the psychic be the one judging them?
yeah.
And
I think also going to therapy, you have to also take accountability for when you are the issue. There are times where you're like, "Oh, I'm having issues with all of these people."
yeah.
And like, "Oh, like maybe they're just the issue." And it's like, actually, like, have you thought that maybe like you're causing some of this too?
Common denominator.
Yeah, like, there's like, you have to also be like willing to hear the criticism of yourself and what you need to do better. And I think a lot of people they don't want that.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I have opinions. It's not until I got more into the space where I really started to notice how many people just fully replace like therapy with spirituality. And I was like, oh no. But maybe I'm lucky because like my mom was someone who took mental health very seriously from a young age. So I was in therapy briefly when I was younger, when I needed it. And we always had very open conversations about mental health. So I never felt like the stigma behind it. And then when I found spirituality and like, it's like, oh, I'm doing tarot. I always use it as, this is something that I can use as like a reflection tool. And depending on how it makes me feel is what I know I need to work on later.
Yeah.
But I feel like for most people, it just stops at hearing what the issue is, and then it doesn't go any farther.
Mhm. I mean, this shit is hard. It's really hard work, and people oftentimes underestimate shadow work. And when you go to, any service that is spiritual, psychic, medium, even if you go to like a church or you talk to someone who is a spiritual leader of a sort, there's going to be a filter there because they don't know what it's like to be you. They don't know what your day to day is like. And you having to dive into that piece by piece, like you're saying, you have to be the one to say those things. That means you're owning your own shit and you're saying, this is what is happening in my life and how it is not only impacting me, but impacting my environment or the people around me. And that is hard.
Mm.
That's really hard to do, depending on what the trauma is and depending on what shadow things need to be uncovered. I think people in general underestimate trauma work and how challenging it can be, not only mentally, but physically and also emotionally, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I've gotten my ass handed to me in therapy so many times. Fucking brutal sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Listen, I mean, which is great. I'm glad. Like, I'm clapping for that.
Because
That that's the good stuff. That's where the juiciness is. And it takes getting through all of that fear in the beginning and trying to break down those stigmas and experiencing something for yourself to be able to see that possibility and that opportunity for things to get better. To see like, okay, I told them my story. They didn't blow up in my face. They didn't look at me like I was crazy. They didn't blame me. They gave me an opportunity to say that and say, and I hope this is, your experience, because I know that there are some therapists out there who are, we're going to probably talk about that.
I was gonna say,
To have that opportunity to at least lay that out on the table is really important to get to that next step, and people fear that first step a lot.
yeah, because I don't know, something that I always struggled with when trying to get into therapy, even like years ago when I was like, I'm going to start taking things seriously, was finding the right therapist. And I feel like it is very hard
very
to,
deterrent for people.
yeah, because there was like a few years ago, I was in a really, really bad place mentally. And I was like, I need to get into therapy before things get worse. So I called like the first therapist that I took my insurance, all of the things. I called them and she was not understanding. I told her like I'm having like these scary thoughts. I don't want to have them. I want to like heal from this. And she was like, well, heal from what? And I was like, X, Y, Z. And I said, and stuff. And she's like, and what is stuff? And I was like, I'm just calling you to like initially like talk about it.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, I can't help you. You need to find someone else, and then hung up. And I was like,
Or when you're in that space.
yeah. And I was like, I was already in such a bad headspace. So I was like, what the fuck? Like, you're supposed to be someone who is supposed to help me.
Yeah.
And even if you don't think that you are the right fit for me,
Help me figure out how to
Tr-
something else.
True, be like, hey, I don't think I'm the right person, but maybe this other person could, or check out this website. I think that they'll have more of what you're looking for. So like that, for like a couple weeks after that, I was like, mate, fuck this, because when you're already struggling with things, like one bad experience like that ruins it. And it's very much, it depends on the therapist. Like I, um, I eventually found the like website. It's called like yourrad.org. They're not taking like things right now because it's depending on resource applications, but it's a nonprofit organization that helps match people with therapists and provides therapy for people. So they just matched me with a therapist, and I was very lucky that I gave them a very specific like list of what I was looking for. I was like, I want someone who is on more spiritual versus religious, but I'm not looking to just like do things I don't know, like spirit, like with a spiritual lens. Like I also want like, proper things. I want someone who is accepting of, LGBT people. I want someone who's a person of color. I prefer talking to female therapists. versus male because I just feel more comfortable. And then they like matched me with a therapist, and she was my therapist and up until pretty much recently.
Because you moved.
Because I moved insurance, and I felt like was she I outgrew her for what I needed. I needed someone else for this point, but she was great. Like, M met her at one point. Like,
Yeah, I did a couple of sessions with her.
yeah, like Jasmine, she was amazing.
Yeah.
And I stuck with her for like 4 or 5 years, and it was just because it was the right therapist. Because obviously that first woman who like picked up the phone was even if she was like, "Yeah, do a consult," it would have ended badly. So, at least she had the, like, foresight to shut it down immediately, but I don't think she handled it the right way.
Well, no.
No. Finding a therapist is very challenging sometimes. And I agree with everything you said. Please, if you're looking for a therapist, be this specific. And if you can, try to go in a time in which you're like clear headed about things because one, it is already, like we're saying, challenging to reach out for help anyway, especially if you have to be the one to say, this is what I'm dealing with. And then on top of that, to be met with someone who is not hearing you, not listening, not even trying to maybe connect you with someone who can understand you a little bit better, or even just taking that time to be patient and a little bit more understanding, which is a lot of the core of what therapy work is about. It can feel like just another rejection. It can feel like just another letdown in your life. Like I reached out for help this one time. I never reached out for help and I did, and this person literally rejected me, which could, you know, make you feel even worse about what you're going through and the potential for a better outcome. So it's a challenge when trying to find somebody, but being specific and not giving up until you find what you need, or at least something that is closer to what you need is like really important. It's
Yeah.
so important.
I don't know, I think you need like, if you're doing, like, a consultation with a therapist, you need to interview them
Yes.
too.
It is very much
It's
an interview.
I just, like, recently got a new therapist, so it was, like, the first, like, session. Um, and she's great. I love my new therapist. I've committed to sticking with her now for the first session. But was also like, oh, this is like I haven't gone through the new part again, and I forgot how much like when you're starting therapy, it feels like you have to tell like every single little detail because they know nothing about you, and a lot of times there's like compounding issues that or patterns of people that make you the way you are. But I knew that she was going to be the therapist that I needed because of how she was just communicating with me. But I also got a referral to her. Like my doctor was like, "Hey, you should like check out this therapist," because I mentioned to my doctor that I was looking for a new therapist. And she was like, "Here's a list of people who take your insurance," but I put them in order of some of like my favorites. So I went to like the first one on the list, and
They took your insurance.
they took my insurance. I pay nothing for it, which I was like, "Fuck yeah, this is amazing. It's fully covered," which I know sometimes, like, therapy can also be expensive, which is an issue for a lot of people. Because I was paying, like, $100 a session out of pocket, and that's cheap. It's out of pocket with no insurance. So I previously and now I pay nothing. But I don't know, I just think you have to, like, interview people because
Yeah.
you have to know that they know what they're talking about when it comes to you. So obviously, like, you have to be, like, licensed to be a therapist. Like, you can't just open just start doing therapy and be like, "Hey, what's up?"
Tell me your problem.
But I don't know, I've run into therapists that are just very, like, heavily, like, religious, like, Christian and want to handle everything through, like, God, and obviously, if you look at me, that is not who I am as a person. I'm like, I worship Satan.
Satan.
I don't actually, if you're listening to this, but if that bothers you, then I do.
You
If you're like listening to this and watching this,
I worship.
then I'm confused how you found us, right? Because we are not we're not those love and light bitches.
Actually, I worship the flying spaghetti monster, but that's a side note.
Yeah. I should have told the people that came to the house the other day that we did worship. Say it.
If they believed it, you have
Yeah.
a skeleton hand on your arm.
I do. It's the death card.
Yeah, which, anyways,
That's a whole other note. Religious people came to our door and asked if we wanted
it's
to.
never happened before.
They asked if we wanted to like attend like a funeral celebration for Jesus Christ on the 15th, and was like, everyone all around the world is going to be doing things at the same time. And I was like, I don't know what you're selling me, but no, thank you.
To funeral for Jesus.
I'm good. I thought that was just like Easter or some shit. I don't know.
I mean, if they invited us for like a spaghetti thing for the flying spaghetti monster, I would be down.
If like it was like this like satanic cult, if they showed us and it was like, do you want to come do things with us? I'd be like, fuck yeah, I do. Let's go see what this is about. Which that's gonna make people think that we're like anti-Jesus, which we're not.
I talk to Jesus. Honestly, this is such a side note. We've been doing. We went to multiple metaphysical stores for a while, and we got a past life reading yesterday.
Oh, that was
Or like we were a past life regression. So you walk in and you like sit on this bed and she like does Reiki on you, but she like led me through one of my past lives or whatever, and then at the end was like, you are surrounded by these like spiritual team, like your spirit guides. Who do you see? And I almost said Jesus because I saw him, but I was like, this woman is gonna think that I am like off my rocker. So I didn't say it. It's like I'm talking to him a lot about manifestation.
you never mentioned that to me. Usually at usually at night we debrief about shit and you tell me like, oh, this is what's happening.
I'm still unsure how I feel about it because I talk to like angels of death and demons, and then there's Jesus Christ who teaches me about manifestation.
He's talking about like turning water into wine and that.
Well, he's talking about how miracles are just manifestation. If you just believe it's gonna happen, then it will happen.
A reader also told me recently that I'm very good at manifesting.
Jesus Christ, I should say it. And if he's that
How did you know?
I was gonna do this, but I was like, that might be a little too much. And then I do it anyway.
If you're not watching on YouTube and you don't get the visuals, I'm T-posting.
As a medium, Jesus is a very jokey type of person. He likes the jokes. He thinks it's funny. I mean, if you're Jesus Christ, like I think you have to have a lot of humor because there's a lot of weird people. But
Anyways, therapy. Do you think Jesus had a therapist?
no. Yes, it was God. We can't do this anymore.
I was say we have a Holy Ghost, but I know people call it the Holy Spirit or whatever. I don't know. I know it's the same thing, but I've said like the Holy Ghost, so people look at me
Holy
like,
Spirit, the Holy Trinity, the Holy Ghost.
and I'm like, I was Mormon. I'm sorry. I only know more
Listen.
terminology for things.
I told Erica that she is the light from the Holy Trinity.
I do remember that. The soul type reading
My fucking mind. Anyways,
is during the soul type reading for Erica.
but with going back to like therapy things, if you're in this like spirituality area or niche, I do think that it is good because it is getting you into the mindset of like self-help and like wanting to work on yourself. But I feel like people get stuck there. So how do they like go past that?
Can we go past that? I'm sorry.
How do you get people from being in this like spiritual niche to like go and seek a therapist? Because that's how they get stuck in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which I know is like a big question, but like
I was like, I don't know how.
because I feel like people get more addicted to the like, I don't know if it's the validation or like something in regards to the spirituality stuff, and they're like, well,
I have my
doing it
opinions
myself.
on how, but I want to hear what you say first because mine is kind of, I think, a bit in here. I was gonna say I'm a Scorpio, but you're also a Scorpio. But
Because like there's people that get kind of like addicted talking to like their guides or get addicted to like reading tarot and trying to solve their problems that way, and they think that that is like helping, and they're just like, I don't know, receiving the right answer or validation or whatever it is. I'm not sure, but they get addicted to that and they're like, I don't need a therapist. So how do you get out of that?
well, okay, so I don't know, but I think because I don't get stories, but I do think that it's important for like people who are in those spiritual niches who give services to make sure that they continue to say, I'm not a therapist. I can't help you past the point of what this information is going to give you. And you have to be the one to be autonomous and do it like yourself. You have to go out there and do that. So I think that like saying that in different ways, but being very serious about it is helpful. But I also think it's important for people to look at their environment, how they grew up, their ideas around mental health services, and their ideas around even seeking help when it's not mental health services. Like, can you ask for help for daily things? Like, what is your communication like when you need something?
Mhm.
Because I think that then informs your decisions on how you maneuver past the spiritual stuff and get to like the nitty gritty of things. I do think it's like on the person giving the services, but it's also on us as is it called a consumer? Or
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
consumer, the
client.
client,
Client,
right?
consumer, all the above.
To just be responsible for what is you're getting back. Because sometimes you don't know what you're going to get when you go into these readings, and it could
Yeah.
be all, you're doing so great. They have all these, but I being in the audience from the live readings is never really like that. There's always something that comes up that they're like, you're ignoring this card in your life, or you need to go and focus on this. This person is toxic. And it's like, that's a lot of information for you to just sit with yourself and only use your perspective on tarot cards. Right. Because you can only see it from your perspective. Even if your guides and stuff help you, that like you gave me a reading when we were waiting for readings, and the way that I was looking at the cards was like, okay, you're telling me something completely different, which was very helpful. But now I'm like, okay, my perspective is only my perspective, as I know, and I'm continuing to like be reminded of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's on the person doing the reading, but it's also on us to just do the work after that. So
You said pretty much the same thing as what I was gonna say. I was just gonna probably say it a lot later. But I think having like conversations in a very like open and honest way. Because when I first started therapy, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm in therapy," people would like look at me sideways, and I had people even be like, like, you don't have to talk about like your therapy, and I was like, but I'm not ashamed of being in therapy. I don't see it as a negative thing. If me just saying, "Oh yeah, I'm in therapy," makes you feel a type of way, that's saying something. Like,
I mean, yeah.
and I think that I don't know, I think that content creators in the spiritual niche, and it could even go into the paranormal, but I feel like a lot of this issue is more focused in like the spiritual side of things,
Yeah.
less so the paranormal. It's still there, but a little less so. I think like creators or readers or people who do it need to start doing a better fucking job at talking about it in a very like open and honest way, and when applicable, applying giving the right resources. Because I don't know, we've told people before, like, don't book a reading with if you're, like, struggling and not okay, don't book a reading with us. Like, go to a therapist instead. You're going to get a lot more bang from your buck in the long run going to therapy versus coming to us. You don't need a psychic to sit here and tell you what your issues are, and, like, you don't I understand that the validation is good, but I think that there is a thing as too much validation. Because I think the issue with the spiritual community, like, overall, when it comes to this type of topic is the validation starts replacing the what you need to do. It's just like, "Yes, you're right, you do have these issues," versus being like, "Yeah, you have these issues, but why are you getting, like spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on readings from all these different people when you're not, like, gonna do anything with it?" Um I think the responsibility falls on a lot of the, if they're content creators or readers, whoever they are, too.
So I feel like readers are like weird about saying you need therapy because they think that they're like offending the person they're reading.
I think that if that person gets offended that you're suggesting that they might need to go to therapy to work on things more, that while they might be offended and hurt in that moment, I think that you're still doing a, a long-term good.
Yeah.
I think being afraid of suggesting it is adding to the taboo of talking about it.
Yeah. Well, I also think it goes beyond just the, like, I don't know, stereotypes of therapy to get into therapy because I'm like, it's a lot harder to get into therapy than it is to talk to a reader or
100%.
to do a reading for yourself because, like, it's expensive. Most of the first couple are probably not going to be much. It's gonna be you explaining your whole, like, life situation to them, and they can just be the wrong therapist, and you can go through therapist after therapist and not find what you're looking for, and you might not be able to afford that, so, like, how do you get from that to this? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, what my therapist told me is like, even if you can't afford therapy or like you're struggling to find a therapist, there are still things you can do in the meantime. There are so many like psychologists and people who are now putting out more educational content on YouTube that you can watch to kind of learn about these types of things, like social media. Even like my old therapist all the time was like, there's there's therapists on TikTok who are making short bite-sized things, like you can scroll through their page and learn so much. Even if you can't afford it, there's still things you can do. Um Even, like, if you're doing a reading, sitting and, like, journaling and, like, writing it down and, like, even just I'm someone who, like, I struggle with journaling consistently. I do it here and there just because it's hard for me. But I do think that journaling helps with those things because 'cause you're at least putting things on a page, and then if you're, like, getting readings and you're just writing it down, you have the ability to look back and see, like, here's the patterns of all of those things. Maybe I need to do something else. Because I think that even a lot of people struggle with that aspect. They'll get reading after reading, and they'll hear it, but it's, like, in one ear, out the other, and even if a reading or, like, a reader is giving them valuable information of how, like, I don't know, tips that you can do or resources of how to go about things. I've seen so many people just like it falls off because that's what it is for them. They're just like, well, I got the reading and it told me things. That's it. Or they'll be like, oh, I don't even remember what they said about it. So I don't know. I just think having more open and honest conversations about it gets people, because like people are also going to be stubborn about things. So it's kind of like,
Especially if your environment is maybe reinforcing those taboos and those stigmas behind mental health, because it's kind of all you're hearing and kind of all you're breathing in and just, intaking. So I think that's another important factor to definitely consider. Like, what do your friends and family say about therapy? What other, big things do you do in your life that sort of either support or do not support mental health services? Being able to like look at those and say, okay, that's contributing to how I am dealing with my anxiety or how I'm dealing with whatever is going on in my life. Um, what you said though, I love that. Taking a second to journal after any kind of spiritual reading, I think is so important, especially in the interim if you are, looking for a therapist or you can't necessarily afford one. Like, how do you feel about your reading? What emotions came up during your reading? Those things are like really important to consider and to take away because I think our brains are very capable of dissecting like some of that stuff. Like, okay, I felt a little bit anxious during this part where like my stomach was doing a thing, and that is a sign to me that I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable. I'm feeling discomfort in my body. So why did you feel that? What is going on there? And then also sometimes reaching out to like community services and like nonprofit organizations, if you let them know that you can't afford therapy, oftentimes they will have other resources and other, you know, hotlines or numbers that you can call to get some services aligned for what you can afford. That being said, though, it does take a lot of digging, which is why in the beginning, I was like, please don't give up, because there is oftentimes an answer, but it does take the work to get there. Just like we were talking about with trauma work and shadow work, it does take the work.
Also, don't use BetterHelp.
I used BetterHelp and it was not a good experience. I'm sorry. I know we just like blew a sponsorship for that, but we don't want it.
I don't. If you're BetterHelp, leave me alone. BetterHelp is predatory. They are not good. There's a lot of people who. Well,
A
I've
lot about the behind the scenes, but I did one session. And it was
yeah.
not good.
There. I'm not an expert in like how they're bad,
Okay.
but I've like read things and like
Got you.
dug into it. So like,
Yeah.
can't always be like, this is how they are, but they are notoriously not a good company to go through for therapy. There's so many like many like YouTube documentaries or articles that like talk about how BetterHelp is not good.
Yeah. I
So
saw those before.
yeah, I didn't know that you were going through BetterHelp at first, and then I was like, no,
Because I went through the website that you told me to,
yeah,
the UB Rad site, and they were like, we might be able to get back to you in 2 to 4 weeks. And I was like, I need it now. And I was like, not okay. So I was like, there was nothing I could do, but I don't know.
yeah, and it was not a good choice. And that's what Kayla said in the beginning about like trying to go into it when you're not at like already the critical part where it's like really bad does make it a lot easier. Cause I mean, I understand like being like, I need help right now. It's very hard to find the proper resources when you're like, I need it. And you don't feel like you can wait 2 to 4 weeks. Cause I mean, when I went through the You Are Rad, um, it took them like there was 2 weeks in between me being like, this is what I want from a therapist before they were like, here's your therapist.
Yeah, they contacted me after 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But at that point,
Yeah. And unfortunately, because mental health services, so many insurances don't treat it as like, as important as other medical services, which it upsets me because I think it's just as important as going to see a doctor. Um, a lot of the like nonprofit organizations lack a lot of funding. Cause like You Are Rad, a lot of this, what they do is through like fundraising and things like that, which there will be a link below this podcast if you are able to and want to donate. Um, we're going to use this, to UB Rad. We're going to do like a fundraiser, for this video, and we'll do some live streams to try to raise money. Cause for You Are Rad, every $30 goes directly to paying for like a therapy session for someone, and 100% of the profits go towards it. They don't take anything of it. And all of the like links for them will be in the description for like finding him. They have a newsletter or like a sign up like wait list, so you can email them if applications are closed, which at the time of recording it they are. But when they open back up, they'll email you so you can like go through all of it. But getting a therapist is cool. But also, if you like have a doctor like that you trust, you can always ask your doctor if they have any therapists. Because my new primary care doctor, I'm very lucky with having a queer doctor who made it a point to find as many providers as she could that were also queer and would help people. So she has a full network of other providers. So she was able to give me a list of like 5 different therapists that were all queer, or at least were like very strong allies and understood. And she like screened all of them, so I didn't have to do a screening. Yeah, obviously it's a little niche of being able to find the right thing, but doctors are like if
good resource.
yeah. I asked my primary care doctor about it, and she gave me my current therapist. But they're also like BFFs, and apparently they had like a queer night or like dinner or whatever, and they were talking about me before I met my new therapist, and I was like, "Oh, that's Amos." I was like, "Did you tell her how broken I am?" Well, that's a whole other.
I mean, I will say, like, if you are in a state of crisis, if you are like in a panic attack, or you are feeling suicidal, can you see? Well, okay, if you're feeling symptoms of suicidal, calling maybe a clinic or something like that isn't probably going to be the best bet. Calling or locating resources that are more of like crisis hotlines, mental health crisis hotlines are going to probably be a better bet because there are people who are on the other line who are licensed professionals. Now, obviously, I can't like vet for them and I can't like guarantee that they're going to be what you need, but I think that those services exist for those moments of like, this is a really that crisis and I don't know what's going to happen in the next 12 hours. I'm really worried for my safety. Like calling those sorts of services will probably be much better to get you at least to a state of leveling out a little bit more so that you can, feel better in your body, feel better in your environment to get you to the next day. You know?
I've called many a crisis hotlines in my life, and I've had some. Obviously, they worked because I'm sitting here right now. But I don't know. I think I mostly most of the time I went through like Trevor Project. Trevor Project is amazing. They have a lot of resources too. And they are specific. They do a lot of work specifically with the LGBT community, so it's specialized towards them. But they're great. I love them. I was gonna say something else and I forgot.
So is this different than like, I don't know, calling like the suicide hotline or whatever?
I would say it's a little bit different, but it's the same concept. It's the same concept, but certain like the Trevor Project is geared towards, certain communities or certain issues that people might be dealing with. I think anyone can call them because I do support. I like them. I like them a lot. I refer them to a lot of clients when I did used to work in private practice. Um, I think that the suicide hotline has a little bit of a negative connotation to it because of the word, but also they are like inundated with so many calls. And I think I've known at least 2 people who have worked for the services and they are always exhausted. They are always like hearing these really, really hard stories. And some of them don't get breaks in between being able to take a second to like, wow, I just talked to this person for a whole 45 minutes. I tried to talk them off the ledge. And I don't know if that helped at all. So I'm not going to like badmouth it and say that it's bad, but I do think like,
I've had people say that it's not great for where they were at when they needed to call. So I'm trying to say maybe this is a better option.
I think it's a better option because I think that a lot of the suicide hotlines just want to, one, make sure you're safe. They want to, know what's going on in your environment so they can get you to a medical professional or some kind of police services, get you to a safer place. And then they're supposed to recommend therapy services to follow up with that.
I don't think a lot of people realize that via call. They don't know the difference between the two. They don't know if there's other places.
Yeah.
There are. So there are hotlines that you can call or whatever.
We'll link as many as we can of resources in the description and the show notes for the podcast. So if you
Yeah, as many resources as we can. So if you guys need that, there'll be links down below.
and I don't know, I think truly if you are in like a really bad place mentally, this is my personal opinion, so it might differ from your guys's, but I think that one of the last people you should go to is a psychic medium. I I personally think that, and I don't think that there's anything getting wrong with like going to psychic medium, getting readings. Like we've gotten several readings from different readers the last few days, like while you're here visiting. Like I love getting readings from people, but I think if you're like really not okay, whether it's you just lost a past loved one or you're dealing with suicidal thoughts, I know that it might seem like, I don't know, I don't think that you should go to a psychic medium because while they can confirm things, I think you're going to be left with, it's not going to solve the issue. You might have someone listen to you for that brief moment, but it's not going to replace long-term like services that you might need.
You ever gotten a medium reading before? For one of your past loved ones? Okay, because I was wondering, like, what you thought about that from, like, someone that's grieving and going to a medium. You think that's healthy, good? Would that help with closure? Because that's what people think. Because they want to talk to the person that just life
Yeah.
passed.
To me, it depends on where the person is at.
Yeah.
I think it depends on where you are in your journey of grief. I think if it happened 2 days ago, if it happened yesterday,
Yeah.
even if they weren't a close person, even if they were someone who, you knew like they were your second cousin, I still don't think it's necessarily helpful.
Why is that? I know. Because my brain's like, oh, tell me everything. Psychology is my, wow.
Well, family dynamics, I think, are very tricky. And the person that you know on a day-to-day basis may not be what you get in a reading.
All
Like,
right.
they might not be, what up, cuzzo? It's good to see you again. They might just come in there and be like, what the fuck, you 2 weeks, like 3 years ago, this thing happened and you didn't take care of it. What is going on in your life? Like, I don't know if the reading is going to be like,
There's no expectation of what's going to come out of the games now.
exactly.
Got you.
So taking time to grieve, taking a second to understand your relationship, or at least let some time pass before you reach out for something like that, I think is gonna be helpful in your healing journey.
Right.
Because grief is it's a monster. It is a really big thing to deal with, and it is not as easy, especially if you're close to this person or family is something that you greatly value in your life. If someone passes away, 2, 3 weeks go by, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're healed, that you feel better about things.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna come up. It might come up. It's gonna, show up in different ways.
2 months for me since my grandmother passed, and like I still am grieving it. I'm not ready to like hear like full mediumship things about her. Like
We would burst into tears.
So, what do you think about medium readings in general? Because I know that a lot of people get like closure from that and stuff like that.
No, I think that they're great. I think that they can be really beneficial, particularly like we're saying, if you have those services aligned, or you at least are, level-headed enough to take the information that you're getting from spirit and separate that from the person that you know is in your life, the person that they were.
I think that's the big key. Yeah, I think that 100%.
Like you said, there's no expectation, and then
So there's also it's not only the person on the other side, because obviously the person that we talk to as a medium is going to be different than the person that you're like was here that you physically
How you
living.
physically knew
Yeah,
them.
solely because they have more understanding. So they still have the like personality of the person that was living, but now they're in spirit, so it's a little bit different. I don't know if that makes sense.
But they also have an interpreter.
Yeah,
Has to
that's what
interpret
I'm
all the
saying.
information.
But it's going through a medium, so I'm going to have my own ego bias about what they're saying, and it doesn't matter if they're dead or alive. If I was interpreting for like another person, it's gonna come out differently than how they would say it because it's going through me and my interpretation of what they're saying. So how I say it could be a lot more triggering than how they would say it.
yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a professional. I don't know how to like word things
They're
in a way that is like more beneficial. Like
Yeah.
like I I I filter myself as much as possible so it doesn't come out wrong. But I still don't know where that person is at with
You
their healing.
knowledge to know
Yeah.
what to say in those moments.
Whereas a therapist is more geared to be able to, wherever you are in it, talk to you about it in a better way than we could ever. Um, because I don't know, like I don't love doing mediumship readings. They make me uncomfortable because of that very thing, which is why I'm like, I don't love doing them. But there was the one time I was at the doctor's office.
They're laughing because they know the story. We've been trying to get this in content for a while. I picked up half of it in one of our ghost hunts, and I cut it out because it was like mid-sentence. So
No, I will. It's I gave my doctor a mediumship reading because I walked in I was going to get a pap smear done. I don't care. I'm very open about that with it. I don't care. Fuck it. But like I walked in and I immediately saw her grandfather like behind her. So I was like, but that happens all the time. So like I never say anything because I also, this is a complete side note. I think it's wrong when mediums unprompted
Yeah.
are like this person is
That's my
your
next question when you're done.
yeah. Um I have opinions about that because I don't. Anyways,
I have questions about it because I know I just go on.
anyways, but she was like, I'm getting my pap smeared on, and my doctor's asking about like what I do for work, and I always say first, oh, I'm a content creator. And I'm like, oh, what do you do? Then I say, oh, I'm a paranormal investigator.
Do you believe it?
And then she was like, do you believe in it? I was like, well, yes, I do. Like, I'm a psychic medium, so like I communicate with like spirit a lot. So like I know that they're there personally. And then she's like, oh, well, like, do you see anyone around me?
Always.
Because I think this kind of going into like people's opinions about mediums. I don't think people realize that if we just simply mention to someone like, oh yeah, I'm a medium, their first thought is, okay, tell me something.
About me.
Like, because I know that there are mediums who will go and just be like, you have someone with you like out of the blue, and I have opinions about that. But it's also done inverse, where if you're like, oh yeah, like I'm a medium for work,
Yeah, that is
people
why
immediately want
first time
thing.
when someone asks, it's content creator first because if you're a medium, that opens a can of
Yeah.
worms.
So I was like, you're like, I see your grandfather. I like told her about it, and he had been passed for a long while now, but she had been struggling and had happened to be thinking of him. So what I told her helped her in that moment, but it could very well been the wrong thing. And that is what makes me uncomfortable about doing them because granted, this person is a doctor, they're a medical professional, so doesn't mean that they're like mentally stable per se, because everyone can like struggle with mental health issues or like not be okay. But in that moment, it worked out, but it could have been not okay.
Yeah, so I don't know. I have a lot more information about medium type things because I've been surrounded by mediums my whole life, not therapists. So I have been around the people that go up to strangers and tell them about like what's going on. The reason why they do it is because they feel like if they don't, um, they are missing an opportunity to help someone. So I have heard, and I'm not gonna like tell people who I'm talking about, but like I've had friends who are mediums say that they have had experiences where they were like traveling and they were like at a gas station. You just so happens to see someone with someone at a gas station. And they like go over to them, tell them your grandfather, father, whatever is here. And they want to like let you know that they're here, they're whatever. And that person then tells them, I was thinking about doing like something awful to myself, and you just like changed my perspective. So that is the perspective of a lot of mediums that are like, if I don't say anything, like this soul has been bothering me and they want me to say something. I feel like I'm supposed to say something. What do? I don't know. Do I say something? Do I not say something? Is it bad if I don't say something? Yeah.
My opinion on that though is, what if what you told them led them to do something on the inverse? Like I personally think that it's bad manners to just walk up to someone and be like, I see someone with you. Like, even if you feel like they have a message for that person, I like, and it's to me, it's different where like if I don't know, like if we're at a ghost hunt with my brother Jay and you start telling him about something, to him personally, it's a little bit different.
About like consent and
Yeah.
sort of like there's a lot of mediums that have consent ethics.
Yeah. And I think that I, I'm more okay with it if someone like asks me for a reading, then I'm more about it. Then I'm more like, okay, like you want to know. But if someone doesn't ask about it, I'm like, I'm not going to tell you it. Doesn't matter if I get it. there are plenty of other ways that the universe and spirit can get that message across to you. It does not have to come from me specifically.
Yeah, because
That's my
other
opinion.
mediums that have ethics of I will not read someone without their consent. So if you go into a medium and they're like, "Can you tell me about the situation with so and so?" A lot of mediums will be like, "No, they're not here." And for me, ethically, the way that I will read it, if you come to me and tell me about so and so, I will tell you in your perspective of how you fit
Yeah.
into the story.
And I agree, and I think that's I agree with that. I think that's fine. So, although I do want to tell you guys that today you're getting readings, and M asked for a love reading, and the reader started talking about me without knowing
That's
that
my favorite.
that I was in the love reading, and I was in the room.
You always do. You always like troll them about that when they like mention a lover's coming in, and you like don't say anything until the end. And then I go into my reading, and they're like, "Are you two together?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Wow, I just did a reading for them about this," and I'm like, "Okay, cool."
I had to just let people know that you did that, and I was just sitting there. I was like,
Hilarious.
I just kept looking at Kayla. Like,
They pulled the King of Cups, which is like dreamy, like emotional, and then at the end, it was the Three of Swords, which was a heartbreak card.
yeah, and I was like,
So I was
that typically.
she had a reaction when the card came out, and I was like, "How are you gonna read this?"
I know I was like,
Because I know what it is, but you don't.
well, I was sitting there and I was like, if she starts bad mouthing me and I'm sitting right here, I'm gonna be like, hey, that's actually me.
Like, are you telling us we're gonna break up? I'm sorry.
Usually the three of that card typically is like, oh, right, like if you pull that in a love reading, that's usually like, oh, this is not good. Heartbreak.
Her reaction was like,
Yeah, because I
she
was.
didn't read it that way.
It was fine.
Past heartbreak, and they were like,
But
"Yeah, you're right."
I saw that card get put down, and I was like,
I did too.
I was like,
I was trying not to laugh.
oh yeah, I was trying. I kept wanting to like say things, and I was just like,
Riker was side-eyeing me.
oh yeah, the entire time I'm just sitting there looking at Kayla like, can you believe this kid is doing it to this guy? I wanted so bad to ask her for a 3-card reading about love, but instead she decided to do like tuning fork healing on me.
You asked for a health reading, so.
Yeah, I did.
But what do you think about consent as mediums? And people going up to people randomly and being like, "Your grandfather wants you to know things."
Important. Very important. Even asking like, hey, I'm a medium. I see somebody with you. Is it okay if I say you?
Are you guys are in a good headspace to like receive this information, or should I shut the fuck up and go?
Because again, it's that there's going to be some mental health aspect. There's going to be an emotional aspect tied into probably what this person is very young to tell you. And if you are walking up to someone and just opening that door, not knowing who they are in life, what resources they have available to them, what their environment is like are they safe for them and get ready to go back home? Well, I feel like those consequences are bigger than that feeling of I need to tell this person this thing.
That's not a problem.
You don't know when that person passed. What if that person passed last night?
Yeah.
And what if that person doesn't know yet that that person is gone? And you are the one to break that news to them. Like,
That would be
and I know like the situations you're talking about, it ended in a positive way. But to me, there's way too many negative things that can go wrong.
I would want
Oh,
to,
I know, and I know you don't.
but I know why people are doing it. Because
Yes,
that is the mindset now of, oh, if I don't do it, then maybe they will go back,
Yeah.
and like it would be a bad situation for them.
because I know like in the last podcast we talked about like debunkers a lot, and we talked about like how skeptics view mediums, and the reason I understand where they're coming from is because of mediums like that, unfortunately. Because like I don't know, what if like someone like you walk up and you're like, hey, I like your brother who's dead just told me like these things, and you're like, but I just spoke to him on the phone yesterday, and you don't know that you haven't gotten the call yet.
Yeah, but they also frame that kind of mediumship in like TV shows. Which
But
there's
that
no way that
Mhm.
that's actually happening, and if it is, that's weird. Maybe they're, like, signing waivers afterwards, but they need permission to film you.
but I think unfortunately that type of mediumship is why mediums kind of
It's intrusive.
and I think because there's one of the debunkers that like we know of they had someone they had a medium at an event. They made it very clear, like, I don't want reading from you. I don't want anything. And that person went against their boundaries to purposely do a mediumship reading for them.
And I honestly feel like you can't do that as a medium.
Yeah, and
Spirit will not tell you information that you are not allowed to have.
yeah,
And that includes someone's spiritual boundaries.
yeah. But I understand that person's perspective of like why they really don't like mediums because like I would be really fucking pissed if I was like, "Hey, I don't want I don't want to talk to you about this. Like I don't want a mediumship reading. I have opinions. I don't want it." And if that person still was like, "No, but you have to hear what I have to say." Like, yeah.
They just keep bothering me.
Mhm.
That's what mediums usually say. They just keep bothering me. Don't leave me alone.
Which again, I might piss some people off, but I think that's bullshit.
I do too.
There was one time when I think we were driving to New York. Did you guys hear that over there?
Yeah. I did.
Anyways, um we were driving like to New York and was helped out. I think we went to like Chili's or something. There was a woman sitting at the bar by herself, and I kept seeing a man sitting next to her. And Emma and I talked about it.
Like physically.
Like physically, like it kept looking like there were two people sitting there, and every time I looked, it was just her. But I was like, no, I don't know this. I don't know this person. I don't know who he is to her. I don't know anything about that. And it's none of my business, frankly. Like
Yeah.
if she if she knew that we were mediums and came up and asked for a reading, then it's a different situation. Like because I know people have opinions about mediums, like saying that they're taking advantage of people. I understand why people think that way because of things like moments like that of like reading people not crossing boundaries like that.
Mhm.
But also there are the people that we typically read are people who I feel like understand they're like they purposely want it for one reason or another.
Yeah.
So like to me it's if that person is like really wants to get a reading from a psychic medium, even just for the fun of it, and they choose to come to us and get a reading, to me, I don't see how that yeah, if if they're consenting and they understand it and whatever, then I don't see how that's an issue.
Yeah.
But I think that like a medium just walking up to a random stranger and being like, "Is this your card?" And it's your dead relative, like I don't know, like, if a medium walked up to me, or like, if we were out, any of these times and a a random person came up and was just like, "Your grandmother has a message for you," I'd be like, "Go fuck yourself." Like, no, I didn't ask for you to tell me this information. Like, I don't know you. Like, I personally want information coming from somebody that I trust and that I know who I can be vulnerable with because being vulnerable when you're, like, in that grieving state is, like is difficult, and I think that
Yeah.
I don't know. I think a therapist would be better to handle it for me, which is why I'm going back into therapy to be like, "Hey, all of these really traumatic things have happened, and yes, I pulled cards on the situation to be like, is it gonna maybe get better?" But I'm also going to therapy to actually, like, work through it. So, sorry, I could rant about this for
No, I have more.
Okay,
I have more things that I want to say.
say it.
So, I don't have a lot of experience with therapy because I am more worried about going broke and paying a therapist might be the reason. So, um, I do more like I don't know if the right word is like spiritual, it's dark shadow, I don't
Mhm.
know, like mental health stuff with my spirit guides. And maybe it's weird because I'm a medium. Maybe it's different. I don't think so. There's another topic, maybe. But I talk to my spirit guides about my like traumas and things like that. So specifically, like I talk to Richard. So a lot of people now know who Richard is. He's like some sort of daemon type entity who came into mine and Riker's life. He is a spirit guide for both of us. And he has very much taught us about like
Mhm.
toxic relationships. So I am doing the like things that you guys are talking about, which is like going into content and like finding therapists and content, and they're talking about certain situations in regards to like narcissistic relationships, unhealthy relationships, toxic things. And then he talks to me about them. So prior to that, like prior to him coming into my life, instead, every night I would just maladaptively daydream. I would maladaptively daydream about like the things going on in my life. And if you don't know what maladaptive daydreaming is, it's basically like you are repeating some sort of like thing in your head over and over again. And it can be like a place that you made up that you go to every day. So like maybe you're a specific character, or maybe like there's a specific world that you go back to, or it could be like something that happened in the day. You're replaying what you did during that day over and over and over again. So I would do that every single night, and it would just cause more stress and more like overthinking things. So Richard told me, because now every night I talk to him instead. So he has like helped me figure out how to process my emotions, because before I didn't know how to do even that, or like figure out how I was feeling. So he like asks me, "What are you feeling?" So I'd be like, "This is what I'm feeling." And then he like goes into, "No, that's not it. This is like, you need to dive deep and be like, this is what's going on with you."
Mm.
So he like leads me through different prompts to get the emotions out. And then I start telling him, okay, so if these are the emotions, then like how does this like go into my everyday life? Where does this come from? And he'll lead me into like processing those emotions. So he explains it very much of like, just feel the emotion first. So that's like crying, freaking out, whatever. And then he's like, okay, now you're going to talk about the emotion. What are you feeling? So I explained that to him. And then he's like, now you're going to go in and process the emotions. Where does it come from? Why is it coming up now? That sort of thing. And those are the tools that he's helping me like put into my life instead of like maladaptively daydreaming.
Mhm.
So like, how do you feel about that? Is that like helpful in a like therapy sense? Or do you think like, I don't know, what are your thoughts about that? I don't know. I don't have a lot of therapy. I don't know. What are you?
But I don't know, just tell me every. I'm a little divided, to be honest, but I think I am one who does not always actively know when I am. Like, I don't have a relationship like that with any of my guys that I actively know of that I'm, processing that stuff with. So my therapist brain is definitely leaning towards also talking to a therapist. Like, I would recommend that because it's a lot to sit with, and it's a lot to deal with on an everyday basis on top of everything else that you might be having going on in your life. And although it might be like it's working, if it's something that's working for you, like I'm obviously not going to be like, don't do that. If it's working for you and you are processing your emotions and you can look back on the timeline and say, okay, last year I was not able to do this. Like I was not able to sit with it. I wasn't able to understand where it came from, and I didn't have any tools. If you've seen progress, that is something that is benefiting you. It is something that is helping you. But I think also being able to verbally do that with someone and to sit across from someone who isn't a spirit guide or a part of a spirit team to get their perspective and to maybe broaden that viewpoint a little bit is going to be important for long-term things, like future things down the road. And even some immediate things that pop up that, our schooling or our knowledge of, mental health and the way the brain works would be beneficial to kind of furthering that work or deepening that work.
Got you.
Kind of, in my opinion, yes. Because I used to do that already think a while, like for years ago. Um, I didn't necessarily know I was like talking to like spirit guides about it, but I would like sit in my head and be like, I'm gonna like maladaptively daydream about talking to a therapist and like what a therapist would tell me about this. And I wasn't in therapy.
Yeah.
And I did a lot that was helpful. It helped me become more aware of the things, the patterns of thinking, maybe thinking of different ways I could handle the situation. Um, but then when you take that into therapy, it helps kind of like you're like
Create a foundation.
yeah, you're kind of like what you're doing now, I view it as like you're gathering the blocks for everything, and then the therapist helps teach you how to place them to build it up
Yeah.
to be more stable, like
Right.
long term. So I don't think that what you're doing is like bad or negative. I think that there's a lot of people who do things like that, but you also understand the difference between that and going to therapy, and
Yeah.
you're doing it because, like you said, you're like, we're
Know how to get to there
yeah,
losing everything else.
you're struggling with your resources, but you're not outright replacing,
Yeah.
like, being like, "I don't wanna go to therapy, I'm fine with just this." Like, we've talked about it before, you're open to therapy, like, we have talks about it, but even still, like, I go to therapy, and it's because, like, I've been more able to with, like, help from my mom paying for it, and now it's free, but then I also take what I learned from therapy and talk to you about it and tell you
Yeah.
what I'm learning. So even though you're not actively in it, you are still hearing therapists' like words and the tools for it. So like,
Yeah.
and I feel like that it's different than what other people who are just doing readings. Like
Yeah.
you're not just like isolating and being like, these tarot cards are telling me everything I need to know. Like
Wait, I have to go see how I feel
yeah,
with these cards.
because
Yeah.
I know that like I don't know, you've told me a lot that like you didn't know that you could set boundaries and like do things until you met me. I didn't learn how to do that until therapy.
Yeah.
So I've heard a lot of what I've learned in therapy with you.
Yeah.
And I think that Richard can help use that to talk to you about it.
Mhm.
But there are still like official type of tools that you're getting.
Right.
So it's
He can't. Sorry, he's telling me things about it.
yeah.
He's talking about there's only so many things your spirit guides can work with you on because you are not accepting of certain pieces of information.
Yeah.
So you aren't going to accept it until you've like awoken to it. Because now I'm feeling like the next podcast we need to do is our spiritual awakening ones. Because I have completely different ideas about spiritual awakenings. Because what he's explaining to me is that you cannot explain something to someone else if they are not in the right mind frame.
Mhm.
So, like, if someone is in a toxic relationship and you're like, you know that the way he's talking to you is not okay, and the what he's doing to you is not okay, or she, or whoever it is, they are not going to take that seriously until they are awoken to it.
Yeah.
Until they are like, until the light shines on it of like, oh, actually, it is toxic. Because even me telling you it's toxic, like, I was in a toxic relationship and I had people telling me it was toxic. And I was like, oh no, it's like, I'm just not explaining it right to you. It's actually my fault that it's happening. Oh, so that's what like he's talking about is your brain's not going to accept certain things, aka that's your ego.
Yeah.
So going into therapy is going to remove the ego aspect of like it's removing your ego so that you're able to work on more things in your spiritual practice or whatever.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the same way people do that with like readings too though. Yeah, I've seen people who they go to like one reader who does like I don't know, let's say like a tarot reading about, like a situation. They don't like the answer or they don't think that they got it right. So they go to a different reader. And then
People like
Mhm.
a lot.
yeah, because there's types of people like I've gone to like 5 different like mediums or readers about the situation and I didn't feel like any of them are right, but I think you're the right one. And obviously, like, because we've had people, like, just mention stuff like that to us.
Yeah.
We don't know what was said in that reading. We only
Right.
have this person's biased opinion and their ego of what it is. So anytime someone tells me like, "Oh, I went to other people and they're not like you, I believe you more." I'm like, "Did you not believe the other person or did they just not say it in a way that you agreed with?"
Yeah. Right.
So I think a lot of that is like kind of like Kayla was saying, like being and what you're saying, like being perspective and being open to actually hearing it.
Yeah.
Because you can go to a therapist and a therapist can be like, with my last relationship, I was in that with my therapist. My therapist tried so hard to get me to see that I was in an abusive relationship, but I didn't I wasn't picking it up because I didn't think that I was in one because it was different from previous relationships.
Right.
And it wasn't until after that relationship ended and I was like, "Oh, they're like they're toxic," that my therapist was like, "Okay, now you're ready to actually talk about it because now you see it."
Sure.
So even like
Your brain won't accept
yeah,
information because it's
mhm,
they think it's impossible.
yeah. And it's like that could happen in therapy too. And but my therapist at least was able to help me, even though I wasn't understanding like that I was like in a like not so great relationship. It was mostly just like emotionally abusive. Um and like manipulative.
Can your therapist lead you to open your mind to things, or they can't do that either?
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I I mean, I was ready to move in with that partner and my therapist was the one who was like, "Pause.
Maybe.
Like, I don't think that it's smart for you to do that. I think you need to set boundaries and there's things you guys need to work on as a couple before you go through with that." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, I see that." And that led me to telling that partner of like, "Hey, I'm going through all of this like healing. I'm in therapy. I'm trying to improve myself. And you are like making up excuses for why you aren't being a better person. I'm not going to move in with you until like you get into therapy. Like these are my guidelines." And then that led me to be like, "Oh, well, if I have to like set these like conditions, maybe I shouldn't live with this person." And so like my therapist made it so it was easier to accept it when I finally was ready to be like, "Oh yeah, this wasn't a good relationship," and it ended. She had already like kind of like been subtly telling me about the issues and like helping me work through it. So it was less of like a holy fuck, I had no idea. It was like, yeah, I see now what you were saying. What you said the last 15 sessions of ours makes more sense now. I get it. And she was like, "Great."
Great.
I hate her, by the way.
It's only
My therapist was an Aries and she's very Aries. Yeah, very Aries. Yeah, Aries and therapy. Like, yeah. I need to ask my new therapist what her zodiac sign is.
But if we circle back to the spirit guide conversation just a second, I think it's also challenging when the emotions are very, very high and someone is extremely dysregulated to be able to accomplish to do that. Even if, for example, I'll give myself for example. If I'm having a panic attack and my panic attacks usually involve lots of tears, okay, lots of hyperventilation, it is hard for me to be like, okay, spirit guides, please tell me how to calm myself so that I can brush my teeth for the day. It's hard to do that. And that rumination is just makes things so much worse. So thinking over things over and over again, considering your decisions, considering what that person said, what you could have said differently, how it could have gone in a different direction. um, so yeah, I agree that like what we were saying earlier, that it can be beneficial for spirit guides and those teams to help you through those moments, but you have to be like aware of it. Like what we were saying, you're aware that they can only take you so far. And if you are on top of that dysregulated or you have some really high emotions about something, seeking out someone who can help ground you in the reality that you are in and being able to help your feet stay on the ground in that way to address certain things is definitely going to be beneficial. Like, so yeah, I'm addressing.
Sure. Hey, this is also probably a red flag that I probably shouldn't share, but I'm going to anyways. So the same Richard character, when he came in, the reason why he got his name is because he's a dick. So he told us,
Sorry, I'm just thinking about the specific types of people who are gonna come in and be like, "Oh my gosh, they're negative attachment." Then I'm like, "You can say it."
that's why I'm getting rid of flag. He came in he spoke in a very abusive way. He spoke in a very horrific, like, arrogant, horrible, rude, both to both of us. And he told me that after I realized that I was in a toxic relationship with a lot of people in my life, um, that the reason why he was talking that way was for me to realize that I was being talked to in the same way to people closest to me. Because he's like, you don't like me right now because I'm not someone that's close to you. So if I talk to you in a really horrible way, you're going to say, you're a dick. I hate you. And then he relates it back to the people that are still doing that, that I think are my friends.
Start to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I also think that is something that only a spirit guide could get away with doing.
That's why I'm like, red flag. And then I was like, okay, never talk to me like that again. He was like, you got it.
Like, could you imagine going to a therapist and then being like, "Oh, you're not getting it. I'm gonna curse." But like, so you slurs like
Being like, up,
you're not
getting it. But that, I think that brings me to my next point is that
he was like, "Okay, we're gonna ground this again. We're very unserious."
I had to tell you because I'm like, wait, listen, how he got me to know that I was in an abusive relationship.
that would throw me off for real.
It threw me off.
That is why we call him Richard. Oh God.
Uh-huh. I think it's also important to recognize that every therapist has a different modality and they are also a human being. So they have different ways of speaking, different ways of interpreting things. And although client situations are not supposed to be triggering or supposed to be an issue, sometimes they are. And finding the right person to challenge you in that way is going to be good.
God, I'm sorry.
They may not be Richard stuff. They may not be like Colleen Muller. But they will, I'm hoping that it'll be more than like, why are you thinking like that? Like, why, why is that something that you find important? Why is that something that you think you should accept?
Yeah.
And then it's on the client to be okay with that, sitting in that uncomfortability of someone challenging you with how you're doing stuff. So it's what he's doing, but just, so free.
So no, it's help. Look different. Oh, for you guys listening, the slurs thing is a joke. It's not serious. Don't. That is just a joke that I say about everything. There's no slurs being thrown by anybody.
Sorry, I can't stop laughing because I'm like, that's probably comes off really bad, but it happened.
Like my old therapist was someone who like challenged me in a lot of ways where I'd be like, oh, because I was someone who would make excuses. So, you witness how she does that to you, where you're like, oh, well, like like maybe I am the problem, and then she's like, okay, no, stop that. What did you do? Well, they say no. What did you do?
I still, I should not out myself because she said that to me because I was telling myself that I was the issue, that I was the abusive one because that's
So she's done that to me too.
relationship works. And she was like, why do you think you're abusive? And I'm like, well, people tell me. And she was like, no, what do you think? And I'm like, but my brain says that if other people are telling me they don't like something that I'm doing, then I'm being an issue because, like, how do abusive people know that they're doing it and no one tells them they don't like that they're doing it? You know what I'm saying? And she was like, no, if you're abusive, you have to do it intentionally. I'm like,
Challenge, making you a little bit uncomfortable.
yeah.
Thinking about Richard. Fucking Richard. He's a dick for a reason. Yes. Okay, this is completely random, but I'm surprised that we haven't talked to you about this yet. Something my old therapist told us that I don't know if I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. My old therapist said that she has only met like maybe 4 or 5 people in her life that were like actually like abusive or bad people, and said that like we were just specifically seeking those people out. And
She told me that I must live in like a small town and everybody knows everybody and they're just kind of like catty towards each other. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you're right. I live in a small town and that could
not that
something
small.
on. But I'm like, I don't know why everyone in my life is so mean to me.
Cause like I don't agree with that because I'm from Utah. I've lived in Utah has the state of Utah has a smaller population than the state we live in now.
Okay.
And then I lived in California, which has a huge fucking population.
Yeah.
I've met people from online from all over the world.
She told me that she could count on one hand how many like abusive people that she's actually met. And I was like, okay, then why is everyone in my life like that?
Because yeah, sure, like you could say like where we are is like small town-esque. But
So like that's the question.
we're like 20 minutes from a major city. Like we're not like to me, like small town is like the areas around like Ashmore Estates.
Yeah.
Where there's like nothing there. There's like the town of Ashmore is like there's like maybe 20 people, I think.
Like 20 buildings, let's get real.
Yeah, there's like 20 buildings.
And then the rest is cornfields.
And then it's cornfields. And then just this haunted building in
cornfields.
like yeah. Like that to me is small town. Where we are is not like small rural like country like Kudong town. Like no.
Yeah.
I just want to know your opinion about that because
I mean, I have lots of opinions, but the first thing is that people who are sometimes in abusive relationships, one, like you're saying, they don't always know that they're in abusive relationships.
Yeah.
And they don't always seek help for them because it's normal. It's what we do every day and it feels good. It's their safety and security. So I don't know where this therapist lives or like what they're
Southern California.
how old they are.
Not a small town.
Southern California, probably a little bit older than you, but
Yeah, that's very interesting that they said that. And even if they came across, they didn't have many clients that were experiencing abusive, I wouldn't have put a number on it. I wouldn't have
I was like, how have you only met that many people? Like
Because my spirit guides talk about it in the sense of like abusive people cause the people, like their victims, to act in abusive ways. So they're like, yes, there is technically only a few real like abusive people, and then the rest of the people are just like falling in line. Those things, yeah. So that's how I like make that make sense in my head. But it's also like they're still acting abusive, so I don't know.
I think that's a whole other conversation.
I'm too on
We've already it's already been an hour and a half. We would be here we'd be here for another 4 hours, and we still gotta do witchcraft tonight.
Yeah, we're doing witchcraft.
We're doing lots of fuck around and find out witchcraft. I'm excited. And
Have anything else that we want to talk about?
I don't.
No, I'm not sure.
we can talk about this for hours, finally.
If you guys liked this, you should definitely let us know, and we'll bring Kayla back on if you have more questions about the intersectionality between
Yes,
spirituality and therapy, because I think there's a lot more.
I do have one more question, which will
I was just starting the outro.
lead into the end.
No, go for it.
So, if people want to go into therapy, what are the like options? How do they start that process?
So I would look up some local services that might be available. There are certain, I don't know, they're called listservs, but they're just like these giant search engines where you can look up different mental health therapists in your area and you can use like filters. So if you don't have insurance, if you're looking for a specific kind of therapy, whatever you're looking for, those giant resource boxes, or I don't know what they're called, they have all that in there. So I think doing your research on what's available to you, what you can do feasibly in your life. Because if you don't have the resources for it, obviously maybe not looking at trying to find a therapist, but maybe looking for something community based, because you can join like a peer group, or you can have like some kind of group therapy experience before you have one-on-one, because group tends to be a little bit less expensive because everyone's paying a fee. It's not as cozy, but I think doing that research in that way is the first step in
how do you find those sites? Because when I like if you would like go search for a therapist, there's a lot of like weird, sketchy things.
Mhm. Yeah, and maybe it's just because I am in that niche, so I know those things.
Yeah.
But it does take a lot of research. It takes a lot of like vetting the who's running the place, where the money's coming from, and how they go about things. I think social media is people promote a lot. People promote other businesses a lot.
Mm.
And they sometimes are tied to clinics. They're tied to other like bigger mental health services. So if you know someone that's doing that online, maybe check out their profile, see what they're linked to.
That's it.
Um,
So
you can
funny
even
content creators.
content creators, but I think even if you do Google searches, if you do use like those giant search engines like I'm talking about,
I think it's like Therapy Today or something. There's one.
yeah, there's some like Therapy Today, Psychology Today. I have a few others that I can certainly give you, but
Of course.
if they seem sketchy, just keep going. Try to
Okay.
find a different one. Like they're in there. I promise that they're in there. The ones that pop up the first that are on the first page, the first 10, you might not vibe with. Excuse me, you might not vibe with. But keep going, keep looking for things. If there are certain like words that you're looking for in on a therapy page, like trauma focused, or if you're looking for holistic approaches, which is everything in your life, including looking for those keywords in searches, so you can type like queer positive therapy, sex positive therapy. You can look at, um, different kinds of modalities. So if you're interested in cognitive behavioral therapy, you're just interested in talk therapy, typing those in and seeing what the results are, and just doing research that way give you a good starting point, I think, for that.
Okay. And then what can they expect like when they contact a therapist?
Yeah, that's a little tricky, especially post-COVID. Services I think have been obviously funding for all of that has been cut. So wait times are probably going to be the second biggest thing next to price. Because sometimes people don't have availability right away and you do have to wait a little bit. So you might encounter a long wait period. You might encounter fees that you weren't necessarily aware of to start. Usually it's pretty transparent, like you either pay out of pocket or you pay through insurance. Sometimes they have sliding scales and things of that nature. So being aware of like asking upfront, like, do you take sliding scale payments, or like what other group services or other things that I can get into to help me with this? Because I can't meet with you every 3 weeks. I can't do that. I can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are some things. Something else would be, don't be afraid to let people know what your preferences are. It's uncomfortable to get on the phone and be like, you know, are you this, that, and the other? That's uncomfortable, but it's important. You might feel like you're being rude, but you're not. You're letting that person know that you are trying to address something specific in your life, and you want a certain energy, certain vibe, or certain understanding to go along with that. So being able to tell people what you need, money and waiting sometimes are going to be the three top.
Yeah. I know there's some other resources that I know of from my last therapist. These are this these are kind of more niche focused, so these are more for Black people. But there's therapyforblackgirls.com and therapy for Black men. She recommended those for finding therapists if you are someone who is Black. And then my current therapist has said that there are, for LGBT people, because of the unfortunate political climate that is happening in the world, but especially the United States right now, there are a lot of nonprofit orgs and clinics that are trying to connect um, LGBT people, especially trans individuals, with a lot more help and resources to make sure that they are taken care of before their rights potentially get taken away. And there's also that also can go into help for like gender affirming care, any sort of gender affirming care. There's clinics who are trying to fast track name changes for trans people, and other things. So I know that that's not necessarily therapy, but it kind of ties into it.
Yeah.
And those are things that I am trying to take care of before I potentially get targeted because I am on like a lot of government assistance and I am very openly non-binary and that falls under the trans umbrella. So I am trying to get as much of my shit taken away before it might not be there anymore. So there's like local like groups and clinics, um especially if you are like LGBT. There's clinics and like resources for people who are like victims of abuse, who have gone through things like sexual assault, things like that. Researching your local groups, they often, even if you're not interested in going to like their group services, they often have a lot of resources as well and can lead you to someone who can help you specifically.
Yeah, so the last question I have, just to like remove the like fear, because I feel like a lot of people are fearful to go into your first like session with a therapist. What can they expect to like do on their first therapy session?
The first therapy session is definitely a get to know you. Tell me where you are. Tell me, why are you seeking therapy? What's bothering you today? What's going on for you? I think being able to state how you're feeling, what challenges you're facing, and how it's impacting your day-to-day life is definitely what I look for when I am talking to someone for the first time, because I don't know them and they don't know me. And this is a chance for you to see like how I am going to take your information. So like I said, it's very much an interview for both parties. And it's not just like, you asking questions back and forth, although depending on who the therapist is, they might do that. But the first one, at least for me, is definitely about, tell me how you are. Tell me what's going on in your life. What's up? And usually that is enough of a platform for word vomit. Like people just need that space to talk about themselves and giving them that permission to be vulnerable, especially if it feels non-judgmental, right? Feels non-judgmental. Um, just to, let people know where you are. And then after that, things start to scaffold. You'll start to focus on things and it can change from week to week. Like you can say, this week I want to focus on family. And you talk about family, you do something about that, or you just talk about it. You don't even have to do anything. You just talk about it. But then if you meet them again in 2 weeks and you're like, actually, I need to talk about my work because I hate them bitches. And then we talk about that. So it's a scaffolding process, and it's also your opportunity to build trust with this person. So things typically start out a little bit slow unless there's a crisis. If there is a high risk, if someone is, at risk for suicidal behaviors, if they're unsafe in their environment, if there is any kind of abuse or assault, then the
That's always,
conversation changes.
yeah, that's typically the first focus of those things. I just recently went through a new intake first therapist, so all of what Kayla said was like questions I was asked of like, what are my goals? What do I want to get out of therapy? What are the top 3 things that are bothering me that I feel like I need help with? Which for me, it was like financial issues, grieving the loss of like family, things like that. Like ask kind of, like, what is your relationship with your family? Like, where is this at? Where are you at now? Or do you have like, are you seeing someone? What's your relationship like with that person? And just kind of like a conversation, almost like you're just like talking to like, it's kind of like you're trauma dumping all at once to like, especially like if you just go in and trauma dump to that person and they will get it. Because I told my therapist, I was like, so like these are the issues. She had an intake form that I could fill out prior, so she also had something to start with, to like kind of be like, okay, I see that you wrote down these things. What is going on with that? So she would know. But it's very much kind of like starting. But with my last therapist, I did a lot of like EMDR, which is a lot of like behavioral therapy things. And that can be a very intensive process. So I also had like enough trust with her where I could go into a session and be like, hey, today I'm not feeling working through this. I just need to talk. And she would just be like, okay, let's talk about it. And versus like doing the intensive like trauma work, but that was also I had been doing a lot of. I've seen her for years, so I had targeted like the initial thing and then kept going. And my new therapist said that also a good therapist, which I don't know how, yeah, but she said like she can always find something to talk about to work through. There's always going to be a little something there's always something you can benefit from, regardless.
And then I think this might be my last question, but I'm gonna keep saying it. How do you know that you have the right therapist? Because the reason I ask that is the first therapist that I had with BetterHelp, I went through that and was like, God, that made me feel worse, but I was not in the right headspace. So my brain was like, maybe it was just me. So I'm gonna try to go back to her. But each time I tried to schedule an appointment, I was like worried about it. So like, how do you know if it's just you? Is it just the first session, just like so basic that you wouldn't be able to tell? I don't know what I'm saying. What was it?
No, not I think it is both of those things. Okay, it's definitely your how you pick up the vibe of the person. Like, what energy are you getting from them? Do you feel like they're listening to you? When they're reflecting those questions back to you, when they're asking you to go a little bit deeper, are they sticking with the topic? Are they actually understanding what you're saying? But the first session is very much, it can be challenging to figure out if this is going to be something that's beneficial. So I always try to tell people, give it at least 2 or 3. 3 is like, for me, the number. Because by then I think you can have, because sessions are usually just an hour long, which if you're dumping the first time, right, you're the only one primarily speaking, it can be hard to get a sense of like how they're going to take that information and what they're going to do with it.
Mhm.
But by the third one, I would hope that there was enough back and forth conversation between you two for you to sort of get an idea of how they want to work with you or how they are taking the information that you are giving them and helping you understand it or helping you do something with those emotions and to formulate a plan on how to move forward. Which is why, again, I think it's important to ask those questions that you might have in the beginning. Questions like this, like if you are, worried. So if you're in person and they're writing things down, you can ask, like, can I know what you're writing down? As a Sometimes people are really worried about the pen moving. Like, why is your pen moving over there? What are you saying about me? You can ask, like, what kind of notes do you take? Or you can ask, like, what is your form of therapy? Like, what is it that you use to help clients with their problems and their challenges and to reach their goals? So that interview process for the client is, I think, just as important as the therapist, because the therapist is also trying to decide, is this a good fit for me? Am I going to be able to help this person? At least most ethical therapists that'll start questioning.
Mhm.
Because I've come across several clients in which I'm like, I don't think I'm the one to help you with that, but I will refer you out. And I always say that. I'm like, thank you for stepping forward. I know it took a lot of work for you to reach out to somebody about this thing. Unfortunately, I don't think I am the best fit to help you with this, but I can recommend you to someone who I think would be more aligned with what you are looking for.
Mhm.
So asking those questions and being open and vulnerable to having a relationship with someone that you don't know start very quickly, and also the potential for it to not go anywhere at all.
Yeah, so you should look for a therapist that is going to help with specific needs as well. So they're kind of like lawyers, where lawyers work on specific things.
Yeah, or even like special, like doctors, special, like there's general practice, which I think is what most people think therapists are just as general practice. Doctor, yeah, which there are some that are, yeah, like are this, but if you're like
Yeah.
trans, like I specifically wanted a therapist who could help me like write recommendation letters for getting like top surgery. Yeah, like that is a very niche fit that not a lot of therapists do. So like when I was first going into it, I was like, I know I need to work through a lot of trauma from past relationships. So that is like the main focus I want. I want someone who specializes in trauma, relationship issues, like sexual like abuse victims, and I wanted someone who was like m- more like aligned with like LGBT justices and who handled all of that through a more spiritual versus religious lens.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of was able to like narrow down the specific therapist because I was like, I want to tackle these specific issues in this way with this type of person.
Mhm. And then if it's the wrong therapist, what do you do then? Sorry, I'm full question. I just want people to like feel like it's more possible through this podcast.
100%. You can terminate that relationship.
So do you just like just tell the
Yes.
how do you find another one the same way? Okay.
You can say, I don't think that this is going to work out therapeutically, and I would like to be referred out. If you have someone else who can refer me to someone else, I think that that would be helpful. I mean, just letting them know how you're feeling about the process. And I would hope that, again, ethical therapists would be asking you along the way, like, how you feeling about our therapy?
Got you.
Like,
Mhm.
do you think that this is helpful for you? Because my thing is always like, if it started out well, but it is no longer going well, please let me know, because either I can switch up my tactics and we can become more, I don't want to say aggressive because that's not the word. We can become more challenging, or if I am doing that too much and you are like overwhelmed by that, I can take a step back.
Yeah.
And I can approach it from a different way because, like we were just sort of briefly mentioning, there are like specific um topics or like fields that you can go into within the mental health field. But I don't know, it depends on the therapist. It depends on person to person. But yeah, letting them know how you're feeling, checking in with them about their approach to therapy. If you're a person that likes homework, or if you're a person that likes to do things on a weekly basis for mental health, and they're not giving you that, just like, please let them know. But oftentimes they will either refer you out to someone else, or just give you the number of resources to someone in your area that might be able to better help you specifically based on your profile. It's not going to be just like, here's a random clinic. You can go over there and see if they have it. They'll probably look at what your intake form and look at their notes so far and say, okay, this might be a better fit for what
Got
you're
you.
looking for.
Yeah.
Right.
Besides that one therapist who was on the phone who was just like, yeah, no, and hung up, I have yet to find a therapist or like come across a therapist that was not willing to share a resource in some way or another. Because most of them are like, if like if we aren't matching like energy vibes, then like they don't necessarily want it to be a waste of time for you. If like you're not getting the help that you feel like you need and you would be better suited with someone else, they would rather have you go to someone else so then they can also help someone else who like they can take on someone else who might be a better fit for them. And yeah, I also will say look for a therapist who doesn't bring their own baggage into. And that's a tip from my previous therapist. She was like, there are a lot of therapists who, like, they're human too, and sometimes they'll bring their shit from like the last client or whatever they're dealing with into a session, and it's the therapist is a professional, so like they shouldn't be like bringing in their anger with like their personal partner and like I don't know, putting it
Session.
yeah,
Whatever.
yeah.
And I know that I'm saying this from like a place of privilege in the way that like I am already in the mental health field, and so I have like a better understanding of this. But this is the hard part. The hard part is the stepping through the door. The hard part is just getting it started. Um, and then once you get a feel for like your voice in that area, once you get a feel for like how you want to represent yourself, how you want to talk about your emotions, and what modality you want to use. Because like if you don't want to do talk therapy, you can do art therapy, you can do music therapy, you can do dance therapy. There are so many different types of therapeutic avenues out there. So yeah, it's all about doing your research and just don't get up. Please don't get up.
Do you have
It's so needed.
Do you have any final tips for people on how to incorporate spirituality and therapy into each other.
Oh, this is like a whole separate part.
know.
But I did write down a few. So go with this being long.
I think it's a good conversation. Like, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I don't want to restrict the podcast.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't care. So I just I don't know,
Dude, I'm excited.
cause I like to me it just logically makes sense because I've been doing it for so long. Like, so it's not like
Trying to get at
yeah,
it, being like, I've talked to my spirit guides about it, but I don't really have the resources to get into a therapy session. So, because like I think like using both at the same time would probably be there.
because like I know for me, I will like do like tarot reading. If I get or if I ask you to like give me a reading, I'll be like, I'm gonna talk to my therapist about that, and I bring it up with my therapist. So I personally use spirituality to maybe, I don't know, like change my way of like thinking or kind of like slap myself in the side of the head to be like, dummy, like you're struggling with this. That's why you feel this way. And be like, oh, okay, now I know what to talk about. That's how I personally use it. Cause I I like using spirituality for like as a tool that I can take into therapy with me.
Yes.
And I use therapy as the main source of like the healing and work just because for me that is what works more. But I know for other people it's more of because I would say I do like a like 80-20 of therapy to spirituality.
Yeah.
But I know some people do more like 60-40 or 50-50, or it's, you know, 20% therapy, 80% spirituality,
Yeah.
or it's 0% therapy, 100% spirituality, which I feel like if you're got this far in the podcast, you might have different ideas of how. But
I don't know.
So, yeah. And that's a really big point. I think that's important. So take it back to the beginning. Recognizing spiritual bypassing, right? So recognizing if you are currently in a position where you're doing 100% spirituality and you're not working on mental health. And if that is not necessarily benefiting you, if you're not moving forward, if you're still finding yourself facing the same challenges, then recognizing that and be able to say, okay, I'm going to need someone else to come in and help me because I can't get it there myself. Like I can't move this needle myself. So being able to recognize that and having that awareness. And then I think, like you're saying, having a therapist that is spiritually connected to whatever, you want it to be spiritually connected to is going to be important. So if you come from a religious background, being able to say like, okay, I want a therapist that has a Catholic background, they'll be able to ask you like, how's I don't know, how is this Catholicism helping in your day-to-day life?
yeah,
What are you taking from those lessons that you are learning and applying it to the problems that you're facing, right? Are you praying? Do you read your Bible? Do you go to confessionals? Do you do all of these things? And how does that make you feel? Are you doing it just because your family does? Are you doing it just because you're looking for a connection to something? So being able to break that down. Yeah.
Which is
a
a
lot.
lot of like spiritual practices of like, if I go through my shadow work, I will start talking to spirits. If I follow this like A to Z plan, I will unlock all of my chakras and will be able to open my third eye and I will be able to see spirits walking around.
Yeah. Which is the next really big point is recognizing when spiritual experiences are actually mental health symptoms. Being able to like take a step back and be like, okay,
mm-hmm.
I don't think like this wasn't happening yesterday, but it's happening today. And now I think I'm God. Like all of those things.
Yeah, no, we have a lot of people coming in and are like, "Are you sure you're not schizophrenic?"
Yep.
We had to like block like certain words because people are like, "You should figure out your mental health because that's not possible in my world."
No, that's the toxic shit. Like,
I mean, one of the books that we have, it's a witchcraft book, but it talks about, like, well, yes, you can like try to claim that anything is like paranormal or spiritual or something like that. Also, like, it's good to double check with things because, like, we've had a lot of people being like, well, like you're mentally ill because of this, that, whatever. And I'm like, I know you're not in therapy by the way you're talking about it. I have been in therapy for a while. Like, I the second I start being like, like my head's feeling a type of way. I personally am someone who's like, if I'm not mentally okay, I'm gonna stop leaning so much into the spirituality and focus more on the more like mental health. Or if I'm having like medical issues, I'm gonna go to a doctor and I'm gonna go through all of those steps before I just try to like shove crystals up my ass or something and call it a day. Like, don't even know none of those jade eggs or anything. Sorry, I make so many jokes because I don't know, because I know like today when I asked like the reader about like health things, she was kind of like, ooh, which is why I was trying to be like, I have like I'm in therapy. I have a doctor. Like I am going through all the steps. Like I'm not looking for a diagnosis. I'm not looking for you to like give me answers. I just want to know.
People coming to you as a medium that ask those things. Are like, can you give me a health reading? And my response is always, I can tell you how you emotionally are going to deal with it or things surrounding it, but I cannot tell you like things about the like health topic.
Yeah. So
She
like,
didn't react negatively to
yeah,
that.
because once she knew that, I think she was like, okay,
Yeah.
because I also knew since we've had people come to us being like health readings, I'm like,
That's where ethics happen for mediums as well.
yeah,
is
like
things.
which is most like ethical mediums will say like this is not a replacement for like legal advice, medical advice, like mental health advice. Like I can give you maybe some insights through like a spiritual lens on things.
Legally, we have to say I'm not a counselor.
Yeah.
I am not a doctor. I am not a lawyer. I cannot do any of those things. If you ask me about them, I can give you information. It is not whatever box it is, advice.
Yeah. Because I don't know. I know that we have people who are like, oh, like they think they talk to spirits, they're mentally unwell. But I'm like, I think that first before I go to like therapy or doctor or like the more like professional help before I like fully like lean to spirituality for things. So I do think that like spirituality, there are things that it can help you with. Like it can help bring up things, foreshadow work and like it you know, maybe along with your like I don't know, whatever your doctor's prescribing or having you do for your health, doing like meditation or like carrying crystals in addition to that might help. It can be a combination of things, whatever. But I personally think that you should go to see like a therapist before you go to a psych. Sorry, I know I hijacked that. 'Cause I'm like, tell me things, but also I yap a lot. So I'm grateful about the topics that you have related. Wow.
You are right. These are things that we deal with on a daily basis, you know?
I think mindfulness is also pretty important. Being able to take a second to say, okay, these are my health problems going on. These are my family problem or environmental problems and factors going on. This is what's happening in my job. This is what's happening with me emotionally and mentally. Being able to understand all of that is going to further contribute to your emotional feeling, but also I think your spiritual intelligence. And being able to balance those things, I think is really important, and mindfulness can help you get there. Being able to just sit with yourself for a second, no tarot cards, no anything. And even if that's just you sitting there communicating with like your spirit guides or whoever, you're taking that second to try to understand yourself a little bit.
Right.
And also
Balance.
being honest with yourself. Because I've kind of, with doing like readings and stuff, or even just watching other people in spaces, I'm like, oh, like these people do like, they lie to themselves because they're like so worried about how they're being perceived. And it's like, it makes me sad because I'm like, even, I don't know. I know that people are like worried about like well, if I go to therapy, what if like they label me as crazy or like they say I have this mental condition? And my response is like, well, then you have an answer. Why is that a bad thing? Like, I struggle with mental issues. Like, I have diagnosed like anxiety disorders and depression issues. Like,
But it's also going to therapy doesn't necessarily make you crazy.
yeah, it just helps you, I don't know, understand yourself.
Yeah.
Because spirituality can help you understand yourself a lot, obviously. But
Your
therapy,
source for
yeah. And therapy teaches you how to manage those things. Because if you're someone who like comes from an abusive relationship, you can use spirituality to help like you like initially like cope with it, like understand, kind of get your autonomy back and feel things about yourself. But I don't think unless you go to therapy, you're going to be able to know how to make sure you don't end up in an abusive cycle again, understand the different ways abuse can look. Because I went to therapy for like previous abusive relationships while I was in one, but because they didn't look identical, I didn't know that it was still not a good relationship. Therapy helps me like recognize that and figure out where to go when that relationship ended. So,
Another thing that's happened with readings and stuff is people will come in and they've had a hard time. They're emotionally like had struggling. And they will usually ask me about, is there a dark thing that's affecting my emotions? Because I feel like that also goes into what you talk about of like, well, just one day I just start seeing this dark shadow figure walking around, and that's why I'm having a hard time. So they like blame it on the dark turning thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
no. And pop
Not to invalidate anyone's experiences, but again, it's like, Riker is just saying, honesty is important to take a look at yourself and see what's actually going on. And that takes you being honest with yourself. If all of, like, were you having those problems before the dark thing you brought on?
Correct.
Did they just start happening out of the blue? And if they did, what in your environment is telling you that that's happening? What's that feedback? What is being communicated to you
Yeah.
from people that you see every day
Mhm.
about this issue?
Yes.
Like, whether or not the dark thing is there or not,
Yeah.
the issues you're having are there.
Yeah. Because usually when people tell me that, so a lot of people are scared of dark things, whatever. I usually will tell them yes or no, it's there. So usually they are seeing something. And I tell them a lot of times when we are going through hard times, we manifest some sort of energy that helps us with it. That is a lot of times a dark entity or dark thing. So this entity is reflecting emotions and triggers back to you so that you are not continuing to ignore your emotions or feelings.
Yeah.
So that is what's happening. They're not like causing doom onto your family because that's what people think. They
Yeah.
think they're being like prepped to be like possessed or like a haunting's going to start happening and books are going to be thrown across the room.
Do you want to hear my hot take about that?
Yeah, well,
Well, one, everyone always likes to talk about how like dark things are like feeding on your negativity and your trauma and everything. Therapy is a great way to combat that. If you are healing yourself and working on that, even if that there is actually a dark thing there, if you think that they are just feeding on your trauma and negativity, going to therapy is going to address that immediately.
Yeah.
And it's going to make it harder for them.
exactly.
Because I don't think that's necessarily like what is like happening personally, but I know there's a lot of people who like are like, oh, there's a dark thing trying to like oppress me and all these things because I'm in an abusive relationship and I'm having all of these other issues in my life.
Yeah.
But if you go to therapy and you work on that, then what is this dark thing gonna have to like
Yeah.
feed off of?
Because I view dark things as leading you into therapy because they are not allowing you to ignore things.
Yep. Making it louder.
Yeah. No, literally.
Because I don't know, I have lots of opinions about this type of thing because I was in therapy before I came into this space. So then I walked in and be like, oh my goodness, so many people in here need therapy.
Like, you lied to me.
Why everyone has trauma and no one is dealing with it in a healthy way?
I have a lot of readings where I tell people, it seems like you're going through a lot of trauma right now. And they will like look me in the face and be like, I had never had trauma, so I'm not entirely sure what you're talking about. And I'm like, everyone has trauma, every single person. Like, it is literally as simple as just being rejected. Of like, Tommy, when you're 5, didn't like your shoes. Like, you don't have to be on a war ground, like war zone, and have PTSD because you watched Timmy die or some shit. Like,
Even when I work with the children that I do now, I work a lot with children. We talk a lot about worry monsters or like anger monsters, and we create them together and we start talking about them. Like, what does this, monster say to you when you have to get up in front of the class and do a presentation? Like, what are those thoughts that go through your head, and what do they look like? What do they sound like? And then we work through like how to combat those thoughts and how to combat that voice. Like, what can you say to this monster? And these are really young kids. I'm not telling you to do this, but like these are really young children. Like, what can you say to this worry monster when it pops up? And like, leave me alone today. I don't have time for it. Or like, I worked really hard on this presentation and I know that I can do this. It's a lot like that. So for the adult version, which can be a lot scary if it's if you're seeing shadow things, walking around in your house. But being able to recognize it for what it is and then addressing it in a space that is safe, that you can be vulnerable in, and to talk about it if you're actually seeing it. So, finding a therapist that is spiritual or someone who is open to hearing about that sort of thing and has the knowledge base to help you further break that down and understand.
Yes. I mean, my new therapist and my old therapist, like, they both know about my journey as a medium so far. They know like what I do. Like, I don't hide it from them. And they both have like asked me questions to be like, hey, what is it you're experiencing? Like, is this like, are there like things that are telling you to do horrible things to yourself or others? Because that's also like a big sign for things. Like, I've never experienced that. And I have people like I've been around people who have experienced those types of things. So like I know what it looks like. But also if you are worried that you might maybe it is like something like schizophrenia or it is like a serious thing, it doesn't hurt to get screened. Right. Like part of why I'm in therapy is because I want also someone who is like a licensed professional to be able to like keep me in check for things.
Like, you're going off the deep end, right? You're coming
Yeah.
back.
And like I like again, like I've grown up with there being less stigma around it because my mom was so open with me. Even if other people around me weren't as like accepting or cool with it, my mom always did a really good job of like talking to me about it and keeping me in check in that way. But I don't know, like I my f- I have family who have like different mental disorders. I'm not I don't have any symptoms of those or display any of it that I'm aware of, and which I've been in therapy for a while. So, but also if something does pop up, it doesn't necessarily like completely like discredit the experiences that I have, but it gives me answers to what is going on. But it's also I'm like honest with my therapist about everything so they can like make sure that I'm safe. I'm not hurting myself or others, which they both were like, yeah, it's very obvious that it's not any of these like things that we need to be worried about. And then they talked to me about the mediumship, and it's cool. I had talked with my old therapist about deity work and everything because she was like, "That's cool. Tell me about it." Because she was like more spiritual, but
It's also important for you to be responsible for your spirituality. Like, if you're in that niche, you may already be aware of like what dark things are and how they manifest and how they can contribute to your life. So being able to say that and recognize that, I'm like, okay, you very much, you've been here for a few days and you're telling me these things. okay, I think I need to like go and talk to someone about this because like it was Richard, like you're saying some really gross things to me and I don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
But also you're not going away. So the fuck am I supposed to do with you?
Yeah, because a lot of people are afraid of that type of stuff. So they're like, you just have to ignore it and it goes away, which I have a lot of issues with because I'm like, that's like ignoring your problems. But I don't think ignoring the dark things are gonna make them go away. They're just gonna make them more loud in your life. So I don't know. I had a lot of people in the like spiritual niche tell me that. And then at one point I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna talk to the dark thing and see what it has to say. And it was like, you're dealing with an just like cast now, team without notice. No, that's a different that's I decided to talk to one of the dark things because I was like deathly afraid of them before. And when I talked to them, they basically were like, you're dealing with all of these horrible things. That's why I'm here. And I was like, oh, fuck.
I feel like that kind of ties into something that like if you are in the spiritual like niche and you watch a lot of creators, if you notice that like if you're watching a very specific creator and they are making what they're saying is making you afraid or making you think about things negatively, or they're like pushing something that doesn't align with you, maybe it's time for you to stop watching them, whether that's us, whether that's someone else, like, because we are also humans. So we are going like spirituality, like especially content creators, they are going to have like biases about what is they're talking about. They're gonna have their own belief system. This is not like a like there's not really like credentials for any of this. So a lot of that is like I don't know, like doing your due diligence to like pay attention to what people are talking about. If you're watching a channel who is only talking about like fear, 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 scary, dark things, possession, horrible, horrible, all of this stuff, and you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Well, now I'm afraid of every like my own shadow. Then maybe it's time to like pump the brakes on that. Maybe stop watching that or watch in moderation or take a step away from spirituality and see how you feel, because maybe if you step away and you stop watching some of that content and you're like, oh, I feel better now, that could also be a source of some of the issues, because there are a lot of channels in the spirituality niche that like do fear mongering.
So you think that this is an entirely different podcast?
Like,
Do you know how when people in comments write, I do not claim that negative energy?
mm-hmm.
Do you think that's why like things fall them out of a screen or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that
Because they're scared and it's not the thing that's like in whatever haunted location. It's just their manifestation of their own.
well, I think if you also if you're watching this video and you're like, oh my gosh, like that kind of made me a little bit like afraid of this thing, and then you open the comments and you see just a swarm of people being like, I don't claim this negative energy, then you're like, oh shit, maybe I need to make sure that maybe it's too late. Like we I think we've talked about it kind
I
of
want to
before.
I want to do a podcast like that. I don't think we've done one, right?
I think maybe we've tried to like
I like cannot remember because I have maladaptively daydreamed about that vodka so thing, which is another story that's probably also not healthy.
hold on, I'm gonna go look at our channel right now.
I figured we were posting podcasts so long ago.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because I didn't realize how many channels that are like in the spirituality and even like paranormally that like heavily push the fear. And I think I don't know, it's the same thing as like a little kid watching a horror movie before they go to bed and having a nightmare. If you're only consuming things that are pushing a fear-based approach to spirituality, you are going to start being afraid of everything spirituality wise.
Yes.
And I don't think that
Yes.
you should be afraid of spirituality.
Yeah, because that goes into a lot of mediums. Because a lot of the people that were in my life who were mediums were afraid of it, and not even just afraid of like the dark entities.
We haven't done that one yet. That's on our list.
Yeah, but they're not afraid of the dark entities trying to possess them. They're afraid of just seeing spirits because they were told that mediumship is taboo. They can't talk about it with anyone because they were told that's weird, don't say anything about it. So they just feel isolated and like shut out and like feel like they are out of place or like something's wrong with them because they can see dead people like the sixth sense.
Yeah.
And so many times I have had clients who come from a religious background, very strict religious background, then find their way into spirituality. And then they have experiences like that. And they're just like, oh my God, they're a demon.
You're wrong. It's a demon. Gosh,
So it can be like a tough thing to balance, which is again why therapy is important, because that can in and of itself can have been a trauma for you to have been in that organized religion and then to move over to spirituality and now having to unlearn all of these things that you thought were either going to save your soul or damn your soul or whatever. Having to unlearn all of that stuff and then having these experiences or finding out that you have psychic mediumship abilities.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That can
I
be
just
a lot.
I feel like there's way too much like fear in spirituality and the paranormal.
Yeah, but it also goes into like energetic boundaries because like another reason why mediums are afraid because one of the first things that people will ask you if you tell them that you're a medium is, "Oh my God, I feel so bad for you because you like can't shut it off, right? Do you struggle with like not being like like seeing spirits all the time and being like overwhelmed with people like coming up to you and like talking to you and stuff like that?" Which I think going into therapy will help you create physical boundaries, which will help you create energetic boundaries.
A lot of people lack boundaries, and therapy, and teach you how to do boundaries. Coming from someone who lacked boundaries,
Spirituality
for therapy.
just tells you to surround yourself in white light. And I have literally talked to people who like tell me that they've done that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, they are telling me that you have put a red wall around you, which is more so cutting you off instead of allowing you to like be who you are through this wall that you're creating that you think is white light. So you're not creating boundaries to protect yourself and your peace. Instead, you are creating walls to hide from it. And that is like one of the like issues with mediumship is that you immediately, once you're like a medium, they're like, okay, you have to figure out your boundaries and you have to figure out your walls because you don't want like souls talking to you 24/7. It's not how it works.
It's the same as in that witchcraft book I was talking about, and it's like called Reversal and Protection Magic, or Protection and Reversal Magic. I forget his name off the top of my head. Jason Miller, thank you. He even talks about like those like boundaries in terms of like the witch view of like witches and witchcraft. Of if you are like you are constantly feeling like you need to do cleansing and banishing and all of these things, you are and you're putting up like these like walls, you are going to start cutting off everything other physical people, like you're isolating yourself, and that's not healthy either.
Yeah.
And if you're doing things and if you're like, oh, I need to do all this because I'm so afraid that something bad is going to happen to me, stop. Just stop.
Yeah, that's where therapy can help you figure out those boundaries as a medium.
And where those beliefs come from? Where did that start? And why do you have it in place?
Yeah, because like for me as a medium, I don't feel overwhelmed with being a medium. It's very much like if I'm in a restaurant, the people sitting 5 tables away from me are not going to bother me. They're sitting 5 tables away from me. I probably don't even know they're there. So it's the same thing with spirit. Like, you don't need to have a wall, you know?
It's also like you don't have like you aren't as like a physical human, you aren't forced to talk to every single physical person that you just see in your vicinity. You can choose who you talk to and when you do it, and if you aren't feeling well, you don't have to even leave your house. Like,
Yeah, but people think that mediums don't have a choice because it is portrayed that way.
and I think that they do, because there's been several times where Richard has been like, I'm gonna talk to you, and I'm like, no, you're not. Fuck you. Actually, I'm like, actually, I don't feel like it today. So can I talk to you? Yeah, actually, don't talk to me. I actually fuck you. He has opinions. He's about it. He thinks it's funny that we're saying it, but
It's like, that's what you think.
I haven't talked to him in weeks, and it's been wonderful.
It's like, that's what you think. That was my whole commentary.
Of course, he'll take credit.
He's like, I'm the universe. I can tell you the message in other ways, right?
So yeah, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of like taboo and like stigma behind things, but I think that the more it's talked about, the easier it gets for people. Because I've had several people who just by me being like, actually, here's my experience with therapy. 'Cause I'm very transparent when it comes to therapy.
You've gotten a couple of people in our community to
I've probably convinced 10 people in the last few years to get into therapy. And that is my goal of like,
so it's difficult to get in. There's not a lot of people that say it's a good experience. And usually people are like, no one gets it. It's horrible. I just am sick of telling people the same story over and over again and no one understands. So like, yeah, that's why I like wanted to go through the whole process so that people like know what it's like.
yeah, because I don't know. I think when you find the right therapist and you are like honest with yourself and go through everything and the right things, like I think every single person can benefit from therapy, whether they think it or not. Like there's nothing like bad to be learned from therapy.
So, but yes, it's so multifaceted. Even if you come in there for one thing, you will more than likely find that you are talking about your life in its entirety, not just like the challenge that you are facing. Like you end up talking about. So if you came in and talked about your work stress or like your boss's attitude 24/7 or whatever that is about, you might find out that you end up talking about family at some point in time. You might end up talking about, your spouse or your partner at some point in time because all of that they all contribute to each other. They all like interlock in some way. So finding the person that clicks and is able to flow with you and not only focus on that one aspect that you came in with, like those therapists who kind of understand that holistic approach will definitely follow your journey and be able to help you put those puzzle pieces together, find the interconnection piece. It's like, okay, you came to me with this issue and then, a month or two later, we're talking about this, but did you notice that in between these two things, there's this bridge? And this is where the issue is right here. We got to figure out what this issue is. We can't skirt over it because it's showing up over here too. So it's everything all at once, all the time.
But everything like, everywhere all at once.
I was thinking that it's actually ends, but it came out wrong. Got it. It's okay. We're autistic.
We're out to you'll open the folder.
But yeah, therapy, it's great. Everyone should do it.
Yeah, so if you guys are interested in finding any resources, we will try to link as many as possible in the description below. Only suggest, like this podcast has talked about, reaching out to a therapist, whether like you feel like you're in a moment of distress or like do it anyways, because it's going to help you see things that you may not be realizing. It'll help you see things from a different perspective. So we are going to try to give you the options for that down below, different things that you can start looking into and researching. Also, if you, out of the kindness of your heart or want to support other people in therapy, make sure to also go down to the description below and donate to the fundraiser that we're going to put a link to the UB Rad website so that you can help other people with the financial burden of being able to go to therapy. You'll be able to help them get more sessions so that it doesn't like affect their resources as well. So if you guys like this kind of content, also let us know. Let us know your thoughts down below.
You have any other questions about therapy, spirituality, how they, I don't know, can intermingle, or if you want to just share your positive stories about therapy so other people can also see that it's not just like bad experiences, share those. So I know there are other people out there who have really positive experiences with therapy. And I don't know. I think we should share more of the positives about therapy.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
So make sure you guys do all of the podcast, YouTube, wherever you are at, things like liking and following the podcast. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.